hello and welcome to I believe we're on episode 5 of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam. I'm Jordan.
I'm Aaron.
How y'all, Matt?
All right, I got to ask, Aaron, where'd the foam finger come from? What's going on with that?
Yeah, everyone. So even though this team played not a great game yesterday, I had to put this one up because yours truly beat Jordan Georgeson in fantasy football this week. Yeah.
I think we might still be waiting for stat corrections, Aaron. I don't know about that. I might get 50 points.
I had to put it out there.
House now. I mean, come on. But yeah, you did have a good week. It was a busy week of football, a lot of football since we had the NFL kicking off. Was your guys' Sunday the same as mine? Just kind of soaking in all the games? Happy football's back?
Yep, I pretty much watched. I didn't watch the afternoon games. I was actually doing a little bit of work during the afternoon games, but I caught all the morning games on Red Zone, and of course watched the Niners game in the monsoon of Chicago, and then I went out to watch the Sunday night game with some friends at a restaurant, and definitely did not expect as bad of a game as that was.
No, it was a rough showing. What about you, Matt? Did you get any wins out of your teams?
Yeah, and I got to see it. Being an East Coast guy, the Steelers aren't on TV very much out here, and I don't have the ticket or anything, but they were on regular TV, and I got to watch that exciting game to the end.
Yeah, Matt, I have to say I have a little bit of a vendetta against the Steelers and the Bengals now because that game went so long that I actually missed the entire first quarter of the Raider game because no one could make a field goal in overtime or the end of regulation.
And no one could make a field goal in any game, it seemed like.
True.
It was very stressful for game one of the season, yes.
Yeah, we didn't have game one of the season in a few of these high school games out here. It was a crazy week. We had some unpredictableness with everything going on with the fire. Obviously, we're going to touch on that a little bit. But, Aaron, let's start with you. You were at a pretty crazy game Thursday night. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so Thursday, I was at Roseville as Roseville took on Lincoln. It was a complete shootout. Roseville ended up winning 40-37. It really came down to the play of Roseville's quarterback, Brandon Graydon, who is showing why he's one of, if not the best dual threat quarterback in the Sac Joaquin section. He finished the game with 5 touchdowns, 3 rushing for 148 yards, and then 2 passing touchdowns for 150 yards. Basically the game, Lincoln got off to a solid start. I think I mentioned it last week, they blew out Roseville last year, and it looked like they may do the same like last week. They got off to a solid start as Alex Barros got an interception deep in Tigers territory. Ryan Henning capped off that drive with a score, 3-yard touchdown. Henning had 4 touchdowns in the game for Lincoln. He played very well and looked like his former self. Zach Giles converted a 38-yard field goal later in the quarter, making it 9-0. Tigers answered back in the beginning of the second quarter with 2 straight Graydon touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions, including a pass to Nick Macaluso. Henning also ran for another touchdown, and so it was 16-16. There was roughly about a minute left in the half. Zebras have the ball near roughly about the 30-35 yard line, and they attempted this earlier in the season with Sean Cotton, a double pass where they would throw a lateral to the side and have them throw it downfield. They tried that with their freshman Brock Gaylor. It did not work out as well. The ball got intercepted, and it was definitely, in my opinion, a questionable play call because Lincoln would have gotten the ball first in the second half, and it was a tie game. And Roseville made them pay for it. They honestly could have scored a touchdown, but they only got a field goal out of it. Graydon connected deep downfield, and there was a field goal to end the half from Joel Bradley. Neither team was able to make a stop in the second half until midway through the fourth quarter when Lincoln went for it on 4th down in their own territory and were a half-yard short. The Zebras were once again not solid on the defensive line this game and had a couple of bad decisions, as I mentioned, with the double pass at the end of the first half. And then you could argue going for it on 4th down deep in their own territory was rough as well. But for the most part, both teams played solid and battled. The Tigers just came out on top, and they looked like a force in the CVC if Graydon remained solid. So that was that game. So Roseville's 2-2, Lincoln's 2-2 now. On Friday, I was going to go out to West Park to go cover their game against Tokay, But I get out there to the stadium. I'm probably about, 20 yards or so from the entrance. And I hear over the megaphone and the loudspeaker that the game's been canceled due to 158 AQI. So for once, I actually took a Friday night off, the only one I'm going to get probably until December. Instead, I covered 2 games on Saturday. So on Saturday morning, firstly, I covered Western Sierra, small school in Rockland, their game against Mira Loma. Before I get into this, I want to say, Western Sierra has not had a lot of success as a program in recent years. They were winless last season and only scored a combined 38 points in their 10 games. They scored 34 in this game alone this week. They went out to Mira Loma, put 34 up on the board, and actually led midway through the second quarter, but ended up losing 63-34. Western Sierra Wolves senior quarterback Trevor Mann had 4 touchdowns in the game, including 2 rushing and 2 passing to Jacob Fletcher and Marcus King. Ethan Ivins ran the ball solid as they stepped up and made some plays defensively, as well as Mathis Klein getting a fumble recovery. It's definitely steps in the right direction for the Wolves, and they just need to continue blocking, limit scoring runs, and finish. They'll have a tough test next week against Mesa Verde. But yeah, the Wolves definitely showing signs of improvement there and some heart. The second game of the day was a college game. It was Sierra College's home opener. The reason I put the quotes up for home opener is because they actually decided to move the game about 24 hours before the start time to West Park High School, as they were worried that the air quality in Rockland was going to be worse than the air quality over at West Park. So they moved it 10 miles over to West Park. And it turned out to be one heck of a ball game and a battle against Fresno City. The Wolverines came out on top 31-28. The first half was defense and the second half was offense. Sierra led 7-0 at the end of the first half, with the only score being a blocked punt returned for a touchdown by Sharon Thomas. Oak Ridge alumnus Dylan Warfield had 2 second-half touchdowns for the Wolverines, 1 receiving and 1 rushing. Well, Center alumnus quarterback Michael Wortham ran for a touchdown and picked up multiple key first downs. The Wolverines looked good against a great Fresno City program. They do need to limit penalties, though. They had 3 for 30 yards to start the second half, and they had multiple offside jumps in the first half. But if they can close out the game defensively a little bit better, and if they can limit the penalties, they're well on their way to having a good year. So that was how my games went this week.
All right. And speaking of looking good, Matt, you're at the Honor Bowl this week, and you had a team there that looked pretty good yourself. Why don't you tell me about that?
Well, Oak Ridge has looked good from the time they put the jerseys on this season. I mean, they were rolling over teams, and this was another game that, I don't know. I mean, we kind of thought it would be close. I mean, defending state champs in Oregon, but it wasn't close, and it wasn't close from the very beginning, like all their games. And then, Oak Ridge scored every time they had the ball, but they also had 2 pick sixes in the first quarter and a half of the game. So the quick scores before Silverton knew what happened, there was 35-0. They 3 and out in their first drive, and then Oak Ridge drove down the field. Jake Hall touchdown run. And then next possession ended with Sebastian Sun interception return. That's 14-0 Oak Ridge. And then Silverton drives again, stalls out. First play from scrimmage for Oak Ridge, 89-yard touchdown run. So that's bam, bam, bam. And then Silverton's next drive ended in a punt, and then a 4-yard run by Dwight Martin. And then another pick 6. So it was, they just stood no chance. Oak Ridge dominated. And they, again, dominated the kicking game, dominated on offense, dominated on defense. They just look really strong, and leads me to my next question is, when will this team be challenged? And we'll answer that here in a little bit.
I mean, yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. I mean, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I'm looking at Oak Ridge and having not given up a point all year, seeing what they've done to some very good teams. It's like, I mean, we saw that team. I saw them play last year. They were 3-7. I saw them get, shut out by Del Oro, and it looked like a team that was, maybe going to have a rebuild year or two. And all of a sudden they come out like this in year 2 of the Casey Taylor era. And it's like Oak Ridge they're opening some eyes, not just around the section. They're opening some around the state.
Last year, I was told this. I didn't look it up or verify it, but I was told from a reliable source that was the lowest amount. They were 3-7. That was the lowest amount of wins in their program history. And this year they're 3-0, and they haven't allowed a point yet. So they it's going to be quite an SFL season. I know that.
you could call that a decent turnaround, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was at 2 games this week as well. The first one was Thursday night. It was also, like you said, Aaron, a tale of two halves in the 12 Bridges Johansson game, but it was the opposite. The first half had all the points in the game. 12 Bridges beat Johansson 23-6. First thing I got to say is 12 Bridges' offensive line just did an amazing job protecting quarterback Whit Cruz. He had 181 yards in the game. He would have had 2 touchdowns as well, but there were some drops. But, I mean, Johansson just could not penetrate 12 Bridges' offensive line, and 12 Bridges' defense was dominant too. The Rhinos did allow 120 rushing yards, but 81 of them came on 3 carries. So if my math is right, which I'm a writer, not a math guy, that leaves 39 yards for the other 26 runs. So, I mean, they're really just – the Vikings were going nowhere. Nate Crawford for the Rhinos had 2 touchdowns. Anthony Gallagher had a solid night too. He had a pick. Crawford actually, he led the team. He had 49 yards on 10 carries, I believe. He didn't even play in the second half. He was a little banged up, and they ended up pulling him. Johansson didn't get its first down the game until 7 minutes left in the second quarter. They went 3 and out on, I believe, their first 4 possessions of the game. That first down did come on the only drive they scored on. What's funny is in the real time, I thought that it was a touchdown. They scored on 4th down, 4th and goal. They went for it. I actually looked back at the picture I have of the touchdown, and the player was actually down before he crossed the goal line. So 12 Bridges should have had a shutout actually in the game, but I don't think they're going to complain about a 23-6 victory. You still got the win. Viking defense did a lot better in the second half. They forced 2 turnovers, one inside the 5-yard line. I talked to 12 Bridges coach Bean after the game. He's happy with a 3-1 start, but he noted that, 12 Bridges, while they're doing well, they got to close some teams out. I mean, that's not going to fly in the second half, especially when you're playing a Sutter, a Center, a Colfax in the PVL. I mean, he noted too against El Dorado, they were up 42-7 going in the fourth quarter. They ended up winning that game 42-28. So, you're up 35, but giving up 21 points in the fourth quarter is not ideal. So he noted that, yes, the team's off to a good start, a good first varsity season. They played some good opponents, but, they're young, but they still got to start learning how to close some of these games out and not maybe get complacent with a decent lead. And then Friday night, we had to obviously call some audibles. I was going to be at Colfax, Nevada Union. That game was canceled due to the smoke. And Matt, you and I collaborated, and I ended up covering Placer Vista Del Lago. Thankfully, I did, because the honorable kickoff got delayed by a little bit.
Yeah.
But that game, I mean, we saw on social media during the week, a lot of people were saying that they feel that game was going to be the game of the week locally. For me personally, I said it was either going to be Placer Vista or I thought it was going to be Oak Ridge Silverton. And I guess I was right on one of those, because this game delivered all the hype. Placer ended up winning 21-18, but this was a very weird game. First of all, I think we all thought this was going to be a high-powered offensive shootout that was going to be like 42-38. A lot of points in this because of both offenses. It was 7-6 at halftime. I mean, it was a weird first half. Placer came out throwing and Vista came out running. It almost felt like both sides were out to trick the other side to start the game, kind of like, trying to outsmart them or throw them something that they hadn't quite seen. Vista actually struck first. Quarterback Johnny Coet found, I believe it's Coet, right, Matt?
Okay.
Coet. Okay, Coet found Matt Long, not you, Matt Long, but other Matt Long, for a 45-yard touchdown. Long finished with 10 receptions, 177 yards. What was interesting is there was a lot of turnovers on downs. We actually didn't see a punter in the game for the first 5 or 6 series of the game. Placer ended up taking the lead with a run by Baylor Kelly. Then they go down, get a touchdown to Costa Alexic in the third quarter, make it 14-6. Vista comes down, makes it 14-12, 2-point conversion failed. And then Placer had a chance to actually put the game away. They were down inside. It was goal-to-go situation, and Placer ended up failing to convert on 4th down. It was a pass that was a little short to Costa Alexic. He also kind of dropped it too. I mean, that would have made the game. He was wide open too. It would have made the game 21-12 with about 3 or 4 minutes left. And that kind of probably would have been the nail in the coffin for Vista. Instead, it's a turnover on downs, and Vista ends up going 93 yards down the field to take an 18-14 lead with 1:23 left. It was running back Thomas Keegan that ran it in. I thought it was a little bit of interesting clock management there by Vista because they had timeouts. Placer had timeouts too, but the way the clock was running, it felt like Vista could have, I don't know the kicking situation there, but it felt like a situation where you just kind of run the clock out and kick a field goal, go up by 1 and leave Placer with 10, maybe 15 seconds to score. But instead, Keegan runs in, gets a touchdown. Placer takes over and they have to go 65 yards. First play, Josh Craycraft hits Alexic for 20 yards, then Placer gets a 10-yard holding penalty. So that's 30 quick yards. But then the drive kind of stalled, and all of a sudden Placer's facing a 4th and 10. They didn't seem to have an answer for the Vista secondary. And just a great play by Craycraft. 37 seconds left in the game. He rolls out, makes a great throw on a wheel route to Costa Alexic, just hits him perfectly, drops it in the breadbasket, and Alexic runs it in for a touchdown. And that proved to be the game winner. I mean, that's a heartbreaking loss if you're Vista. And, I've dubbed Placer now the cardiac Hillman because I've covered him 3 times this year, and they've had 3 comeback wins in the last minute of the game. So, I mean, they're doing something right. 3 comeback wins against 3 good teams. Vista falls to 1-3, but I mean, their 3 losses are Manteca, Granite Bay, Placer. I mean, it's hard to find a moral victory when you're 1-3, especially when things don't get easier this week with Sac High on Saturday. But I mean, 1-3 with 3 losses against probably 3 of the top teams in the area. I mean, Matt, you cover Vista a lot too. What do you think the mind or the headspace is right now if you're Vista?
Well, first off, they'll be fine. I mean, Coach Landis says he expects them to be fine. We're expecting them to be fine this morning in practice. And I think they will be. They have goals, and they're not going to let this. I mean, I'm sure this is a very disappointing loss. It's a game they felt they should have won, but they're going to rebound from this. But rebound aside, this was a tough loss. I mean, they were 1-3 in preseason. I bet you ask anybody on that team, the worst they would say they'd be if they predicted before the season started would be 3-1. So, but they'll be okay.
I think they'll be okay too. One interesting thing about this, this kind of goes off what I learned is one, I think it's safe to say I've learned that Placer is a cool, calm, and collected in close games. And having that now is going to really pay off when you get into November. I mean, there's some mistakes that have kept Placer from winning by more, both in the Casa game and the Vista game. A lot of uncharacteristic penalties. Placer had a drive in the Vista game where they could have, it was first drive of the second half, and they actually drove all the way to Vista's 35, and that was with 30 yards of false start penalties on the drive. Which, I mean, if you're a coach, that's just got to make you rip your hair out. But I mean, that cost them from being down inside the 5-yard line right there. And, Casarobo, they had a few interceptions, couple, penalties that brought him out of scoring position. So Placer, I mean, they're a legit team, and they get Xander Esty back now after the bye. I did say kind of going into this, I think the winner of the Placer Vista game is, you could argue that they're probably going to be the favorites going into Division III playoffs. Should everything play out how we think it's going to play out. That being said, I also wouldn't be shocked if this is the last time Placer and Vista face off this year. I could easily see that being a section semifinal game or even a section championship game. A couple other things I learned in this last week. Bear River they're in some trouble. They had a tough loss to Liberty Ranch. They lost 57-7. Bear River's now sitting at 1-2. And, it's just, hold on, I'm getting a call. Sorry, I'm recording on my phone, everyone, in case you can't tell, because the Wi-Fi up here in Auburn is not the best. So we're dealing with that right now. I think smoke's kind of messing with it. Another thing I learned, though, in week 1 is Caden Pinnick really emerged as the QB1 at Del Oro, which I think a lot of people thought would happen this year. But Pinnick led the Eagles to a 41-6 win over River Valley on the road. Things were pretty much over by the end of the first quarter in that one. So it's kind of funny. Del Oro's been platooning quarterbacks all year long. Then the 1 year Pinnick or 1 game Pinnick earns the QB1 job. River Valley, I mean, they're beating them by so much that the other quarterback ends up playing a lot too in Hamilton. But it sounds like Pinnick's really started emerging as a QB1 there. I'm going to be interested to see how that carries over into this week. Can he lead the Eagles to a 5-0 record? That would be huge. And, that's really, this week's a big game for Del Oro, but we'll get to that later. Aaron, what about you? What are some things you learned this week?
Yeah, so starting off, I know back after week 1, I talked a lot about Rockland and how, that loss to Turlock, I was worried, what that meant for them for the season. What I learned after this week is that they're going to be just fine. They dominated this week, won 41-0 against Antioch. They'll be right in the mix in the SFL. They have a very solid defense, even without Derek Houston. Caleb Larson had 10 tackles in the game on Friday night. Derek Keeley had 7 and a sack, and Cohen Bell had 6 and a sack. I'll get into this later as well when it comes to some of my players of the week, but Elias Brown played a very good game for them when it came to running the ball. I personally think Oakmont is capable of winning a league game. I know this is a bit of a rebuilding year for them. They have a lot of, sophomores and juniors, but they only lost 21-13 to College Park out in the Bay. Again, not saying they're the best team, but still, putting up a respectable performance like that is big when it comes to a team who's in a rebuilding year. They will still likely be near the bottom in the FVL, but I can see them potentially beating a Nevada Union or a Ponderosa team if they catch a bad night. Also, this week is going to be huge for Lincoln. Coming off of 2 losses in a row now at 2-2, I know that team does not want to be 2-3 going into bye week, especially when they come out of it. And the second league game they're going to play is going to be against Placer. It's a big game for them. They desperately need to win. If they lose this week, it might be time to hit the panic button. Also, I gotta say, I know you talked a little bit about the smoke, but yeah, one thing also I learned, nothing's guaranteed. We should cherish getting to play or be a part of high school football games because, life hits fast, and this fire is proving that. I know we talked a little bit before we got on the call, and it sounds like that the 10% containment of the fire is going to be right around the Forest Hill area, so it won't hit the town. Fingers still crossed on that. So yeah, thoughts out to any and all impacted. I know the fire's still going to be burning this week, and hopefully we don't catch a wind shift or anything, and we're able to still play some high school football games.
I agree. And Matt, what about you? We learned a lot about teams in your area, specifically Oak Ridge, and I know you got some stuff to say about Vista Del Lago and Placer. What'd you learn this week?
Well, I'm going to keep this short because we got a lot to cover, but with this loss, Vista, I would say they need a win this week to start off league play. They need to beat Sac High because, they wanted to have a good league record because they wanted to get a better seed this year. And instead of playing a tough team in the second round of playoffs, maybe they can get, an easier game, and then when they reach the semifinals, then have a tough game. We're at 1-3. That's not going to happen now. They're going to have a tough playoff draw. So they need to win their league games, and after 2 losses in a row, they need to beat Sac High on Saturday. And instead of what I learned, what I want to learn is I want to learn how Oak Ridge plays in a close game.
Yeah, it's true. I think when you're beating teams by an average of 60 points, it's almost tough to say how good they are. It's almost like the 1980 Miracle on Ice team when Russia was losing to the U.S. and they were like, he doesn't know what to do. They've never been in a close game. The coach doesn't know what to do. And I think Taylor definitely has experience in close games. He knows what to do, but it's interesting to see how the kids are going to respond to that.
Yeah. So it's coming. It's coming.
And Aaron, I know you kind of touched on the Fires a little bit, and that actually kind of ties me into my athlete of the week this week. For the player of the week, for football-wise, it's got to be Josh Craycraft of Placer. He was incredible, 204 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, his 3rd game-winning drive in 4 games. That's a pretty hot start to your first varsity season. I talked to him after the game, and he goes, this is not how I expected it was going to go, that they were going to call on me to lead 3 game-winning drives in 4 games. Costa Alexic had a good game, too, 5 receptions, 91 yards. He had 71 rushing yards as well. But my athlete of the week has to be McKenna Lechner of Forest Hill High School. She took 8th out of 181 cross-country runners at the Josh Ruff Invitational in Folsom. She broke the school record for the 3,400 meters with a time of 13 minutes, 52 seconds. The old time was 20 minutes, 28 seconds. So she has absolutely shattered it. With everything going on in that community right now, that's some great news for her. The fact that she was able to just put it together and compete and then break a school record and compete as well as she did. Hats off to her. So McKenna Lechner of Forest Hill, you are by far easiest decision I've ever made, the athlete of the week this week. Aaron, what about you?
Yeah, I've got a few players. I honestly, Ryan Henning, even though they lost, he had a great game, 230 yards and 4 touchdowns. he honestly probably could be the athlete of the week, but I want to say I kind of want to wait and see when he goes off in a game with a performance like that in a win. Plus, I've wrote a lot about him recently as well, so I'm actually giving athlete of the week this week to Whit Cruz, the quarterback over at 12 Bridges, who's led the team to a 3-1 start. He was 13 of 18 for 185 yards, leading his team to a 3-1 record and another win. So I'm going to give it to Whit Cruz for Lincoln this week. For South Placer, I talked a lot about Elias Brown. He had 8 carries for Rockland for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's an average of over 28 yards a carry. He's tied for 4th in the Sac Joaquin section in rushing yards as of Saturday night. 546 yards and 5 touchdowns on the season. Roseville, Brandon Graydon had another amazing performance, as I mentioned, 298 total yards and 5 touchdowns. Granite Bay, I just did Carter Jackson last week, so I'm not going to do him this week, but I still have to shout him out again. Scored all 3 touchdowns for his team on Friday night in the Honor Bowl in a 23-3 win against Spanish Springs. Valley Christian Academy, small school out in Roseville. They're 3-1 for the first time since 2003 with a win over Valley this week. He had 5 total touchdowns in the 43-6 win. So big game for him as well. And then speaking of Granite Bay, as I mentioned just before that, Sierra College freshman Chris Neihart scored 5 goals in a 21-13 water polo win, the first win of the season for Sierra College over Las Positas on Wednesday. Neihart was the Sierra Foothill League's MVP last season. So those are some of my players. If I had to pick one for South Placer, it would be Elias Brown of Rockland.
All right, I like it. Matt, what about you? Who's your player of the week over in Folsom?
Well, it seems like you pick Matt Long every week. Even in a loss, you saw him. I mean, he had 10, 11 catches for 170 yards and 2 scores. At the Honor Bowl, at the end of the game, the organizers picked the MVP for both teams. For Oak Ridge, they picked Dwight Martin, who had 4 carries for 96 yards. I mean, he touched the ball 4 times, but he had 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. So in Oak Ridge, I mean, they haven't had like a big statistical guy all year because, they're ahead by so much and so many different guys are touching the ball. Like I think Martin through 3 games leads the team in carries with like 17. Like they just touch the ball. So it's hard to pick. You don't have a guy with standout numbers, but when you're averaging 24 yards a carry, that's pretty good. So I chose him.
All right, I like it. And before we head on, I know we got some college stuff to hit. Let's kind of talk about where we're going to be on this weekend. So for me personally, Friday night, I'm going to be at a really good game. I'm going to be at Menlo Atherton and Del Oro. This one's going to be interesting. One, it's Del Oro's homecoming. So I guess it's fitting as a Del Oro alum that I'm covering them on homecoming. But I'm interested to see how the Golden Eagles are going to handle Oregon commit Jurian Dickey. He's a 5-star, 6'3" wide receiver that, according to 24/7 Sports, is the number 2 receiver prospect in the nation and the 16th overall player in the country. He has 321 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns through his first 2 games played. I'm interested to see how Del Oro is going to handle this. I think the key in it for DO is going to be to possess and control the football and the pace of play and kind of limit the Bears offense a little bit and try to keep them off the field as much as possible. I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm actually going to pick Del Oro in a homecoming upset. I think the crowd's going to be great. The emotions are going to be high. I've got DO winning this one 31-28. And on Saturday, that's if this game is going to be played, I will be covering Forest Hill and Miraloma, excuse me. I spoke to Forest Hill head coach Mark Tuminelli, and he told me that his team wants to play this week, and I believe that they're going to find a way. That community's been through a lot in the last week. They really need something to rally behind. The whole city's been evacuated. They did say the one challenge right now is everything is up. All their gear, their uniform, stuff like that right now is up at the high school. So they have to find a way to go up there and get it. I'm hoping with some more containment, they're able to do so. I think if this game is played, Forest Hill is going to be able to rally behind that and pick up its first win of the season. I've got Forest Hill 35, Miraloma 34. But I mean, props to the Wildfires for even wanting to play and wanting to get back out there and just have a sense of normalcy after what's been a crazy week. Aaron, what about you? Where are you going to be this week?
Yeah, so I wasn't able to cover West Park last week, so I'm actually going to be driving out there for technically the 3rd time in 1 week on Thursday. I'm going to be going out there to cover their game against Rodriguez. Again, all of this could change depending on what happens with the with the fires and the smoke. hopefully we're able to have all these games occur. But yeah, so I'll be there on Thursday as they play Rodriguez. Everything stands with the Panthers from what I basically said last week. They're still 2-0. They're one of the only teams in the area that have played 2 games, while most other people have played 3 and 4. Rodriguez has a decent team at 2-1 that has beat Bear Creek and Napa and have been led by Kenan Jones and Dylan Burke at quarterback. I'm going to say West Park take this one. Let's go 47-24. And then Friday, since it's 2 of the teams I cover and it should be a good game, I'm going to go over to Wood Creek for Lincoln versus Wood Creek. Wood Creek is coming off of a bye week and Lincoln's coming off of another loss. As I mentioned earlier, it's a must-win for the Zebras to get some momentum going. Both Aaron Kay and Connor Rojas, who going into the season for Wood Creek, before they got injured at least, were expected to be 2 of their best guys on defense, especially in the secondary. They're likely going to be game time decisions potentially for the Timberwolves, so that could be kind of big. I'm going to say the Zebras actually bounce back in this one, though, and get a close win. Let's go 24-20. We'll go 24-20 Lincoln.
All right, I like it. Matt, what about you?
I'm going to try Oak Ridge again. Coach Taylor told his team after the win Friday that Pleasant Valley will be out of Chico will be a test for them. So I'm hoping this is a close game, or at least closer. He said they're a big physical team, 2 tight end, 2 backs, and likes to run the ball downhill. So he said they're going to, Oak Ridge's defense is going to be tested up front. Pleasant Valley is 3-0, but again, the teams they've played are only a combined 2-7, so I don't know how that looks. But Coach Taylor says it's going to be a tough game. I will agree with him. I hope so. Like I said, I'm going 42-28 Trojans. That's Thursday. That's a 6:30 p.m. kickoff as well. And for Friday and Saturday, I'm calling it my bye week. I'm heading to the coast, so I will not be around.
All right. I do have a question, though, because I know Folsom plays Pittsburgh Friday night. What are you kind of expecting out of that game?
Well, I go a lot on what the coach tells me, and Coach Doherty said it's going to be a tough game. He said they've got 6 or 7 D1 athletes. Their quarterback's heading to Miami, and they've got a wide receiver that placed 6th in the state in the 100-meter dash last year, and they got another wide receiver who's 6'5" and can run like the wind. So he said it's going to be a big challenge. It could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised either way if Folsom won or lost that game.
All right. And I know this one doesn't really impact me as much, but I know we've got some colleges in the area between Sierra, Jessup, and Folsom Lake College. None of them are in my Auburn area, but Aaron, let's start with you. I know you had the colleges really in action this week. What'd you see over there?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about football already. I went to the water polo game on last Wednesday against Las Positas. I talked a little bit about Chris Neihart already, but they also have a lot of other local talent, such as Rockland alumnuses Hank Wildenrat, and I'm going to butcher this name. It's Philip. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. It starts with a C. You can look it up. It's really hard to pronounce. If you see it, you'll understand the difficulty.
I'm looking at it on the show outline right now. I mean, I commend you for even attempting it.
I know it's like somewhere like I don't know if it's Denmark, Norway. It's somewhere like Nordic like name. So it's hard for me to pronounce it. But they also have goalkeeper and Whitney alumnus Brendan Kraft, who had 15 saves in the game on Wednesday. So the water polo team looked pretty good. That was their first win of the season. Volleyball is doing better and bounced back after starting 1-3. This is the same team that started last season 1-5 and then won 19 games in a row. So, I mean, I think they'll be just fine. They're well coached with Alana Whitnack and Vera Nelson there. So I expect to see them in the mix in the Big 8. Alexis Baccia and sophomore Veronica Tupi have combined for 115 kills. Alexis out of Bowdoin has 42 kills and 62 digs, while Haley Mulich has 101 digs, leading the team defensively. Women's soccer has yet to give up a goal while scoring 22. They're led by Charity Myers with 5 goals and Taylor Davis with 4. Amber Pond has 3 goals and 3 assists. They were actually supposed to play a game on Saturday against Lake Tahoe. That ended up getting canceled due to air quality. William Jessup for cross country. They're led by sophomore Azalea Prince, who finished 10th out of 36 runners at the Kim Deuce Invitational and Series on Saturday. Logan Dodge was the top performer for the men in 31st place. In volleyball, they're 5-3 after 2 wins on Friday and Saturday against number 19 in the nation, Vanguard, and San Diego Christian College. Marina Gonzalez has combined for 27 kills in the last 2 matches, while Taylor Tarbell has 7 blocks, and Lauren Toon has 20 digs in the last 2 games. The Warriors will play Life Christian in their conference home opener on Friday night for the Golden State Athletic Conference. In men's soccer, they're 2-1-2 with their last game being last Monday. Wednesday was canceled against CSU Monterey Bay. They play California Maritime on the road on Tuesday. They're led by their sophomore Diego Nunez with 4 goals and 3 assists. And then women's soccer, I'm actually going to go see them tomorrow against Lincoln University. They're 1-2-1, haven't played since last Saturday. Friday's game against UC Merced also canceled due to poor air quality. So far in their 4 matches, sophomore, and then this goes to Matt's area, Folsom alumna, Kaylee Gillespie has 4 goals for the Lady Warriors. So that's how my 2 colleges are doing.
All right, Matt, what about you?
Again, quickly, I know we're in a time limit here. Folsom Lake College women's soccer, already played 3 games so far. They're 2-0-1. Annette Medina leads the way with 2 goals. She's a Cordova High graduate. And Naya Attaway from Paradise High School has 2 assists. The men's soccer team is 1-1 on the season with Roseville graduate Ryan Brannigan leading the way with 2 goals. And the women's volleyball team is 4-3 on the season. Michaela Ide from Union Mine High School, Alexa Berry, Mackenzie, I don't know how to pronounce this name. She's from Vista Del Lago, though, so I guess I should know, huh? Mackenzie Nadish, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, and Olivia Rush. Those 4 players are leading the way offensively for them.
All right, I like it. You know, I do have one little thing to add about the college segment. I know I've done a lot of work with Jessup Athletics, but I got to say I might be pulling for Cal Maritime in that soccer game against Jessup, because if you guys don't know, I actually played rugby at Cal Maritime Academy. So it's kind of a little crossover for me. The 2 schools that I attended are going up against one another. I guess I'm torn. But that kind of does it for our college segment. I know we've got a big week. Hopefully we get the smoke pending. We just want to say we give our thoughts and prayers out to all of those in Placer and El Dorado County that are impacted by these wildfires. Do any of you guys have anything you'd like to add before we wrap this one up?
No, I think you summed it up. Just thoughts out to everybody who's impacted. Once again, it sounds like, they've contained part of the fire, and I know that, firefighters are working hard. So I guess if there's anything left to say, just big thanks to all the firefighters out there who are fighting to protect all the homes out there, in Placer and El Dorado counties.
All right. Matt, are you all good?
Yeah, I just want to say enjoy the cooler weather this week.
Yeah,
yes.
Definitely. Yeah, I think we deserved it after braving the 100-degree triple-digit temperatures last week. Well, that just about does it for this episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam. I've been Jordan.
I've been Aaron.
And I'm Matt.
All right, we'll see you next time.